we are not called to be named. We're going to be called something, currently in progress and being determined. But I'm here with old mate Jay Smurney. You want to introduce yourself, Jake?
Happening, everybody. Just two 24-year-olds who've been loving and playing basketball for years and want to start a podcast. So yeah, happy to be here, and hopefully we can entertain some people while severely struggling with our debut podcast.
Yeah, exactly. And so, what you'll find is that we don't have any flashy graphics, as you say. It's just a still on a screen. Um, you know, we're just gonna work out Jake's Twitch. We're gonna do some share streams. We're gonna work all that out. But for now, we're just bare bones, and we'll be, going through some videos and putting some stuff up on screen. But there's no flashy transitions or really exciting things coming up on screen. So bear with us while we work everything out. But hopefully, this is greatness to come. So sit
Definitely.
tight. We're gonna kick into it now. Jake, how about I let you kick off with our first kind of point of conversation?
Yeah, look, 100%. It's been a pretty big week, and I want to start with something a little bit more boring, but it just really sort of raised an eyebrow because the last 2 years I've been pretty perplexed with what David Griffin has been doing at New Orleans. When they signed him at the end of the 18-19 season to sort of steer the Davis trade talks, that's before Lakers got him, obviously. I liked it because he did some good stuff with Cleveland when they won a championship with LeBron, getting guys like J.R. Smith, Iman Shumpert, and just shaping that championship team. But yeah, look, he got Zion, which was a no-brainer. He got a pretty good trade package for Davis at the time, which was Lonzo, Ingram, Josh Hart, and a couple of draft assets. But his most recent decision making, whether it be moving picks, hiring Stan Van Gundy, bringing in JJ Redick, and then letting him walk and sort of disenfranchising Zion and JJ in the process, it's just made me think like what's happening around there. And the most recent article that I saw was from Bleacher Report. This guy called Adam Wells reported that Pelicans are going to pursue Kyle Lowry, and they hope that he can have a leadership influence like CP3. Now, that's pretty cool and all, but I'm just kind of wondering what's going on there because I don't feel like Lowry's the kind of guy that Pelicans need because they just let Drew Holiday go. So are you rebuilding around Zion or are you trying to win now? I just feel like they don't have an identity. So, I mean, to bring it back to the start, I don't know. What do you think, Luca? Do you think Lowry's the kind of guy that would fit at Pelicans? And second to that, do you think Griffin has been or is going to do a good job this season after what I would say has been a few misses in the first 2 years as general manager?
It's a really good point. And just before I we continue on just with the topic, I just want to say a big thank you to Arksu in chat, who's just donated, I think, 10 subscriptions to the channel, which is amazing. So thank you so much. We're in with the inaugural pod, and we're just getting so much support is insane. And thank you, M, for the raid as well with 6 viewers. That's amazing, and can't thank you guys enough.
Thank
Um,
you very much.
just didn't want to interrupt Jake while he was going through all that.
Nah, that's all good.
So no, look, dude, I totally agree. Like it's a hard thing to understand just because I think he's, as you say, missed quite a bit with what the Pelicans have been doing, and I haven't quite understood it. Um, in terms of like Lowry specifically, like what they're after is that CP3 leadership, and I mean, Kyle Lowry is, he's a savvy vet, um, but there's something about that backcourt that I feel like outside of obviously developing Lonzo, and obviously Lonzo has taken massive strides in his game. Like, do you think that trying to bring someone like Lowry is going to have a positive impact on the growth of like some of those young players that they've got in that backcourt, or is it just going to put them in a backseat where they really should be developing? Like, I'm just wondering if this is just going to be another miss for the Pelicans in terms of like the actual value that he's going to bring to the team, because I think it's quite unclear.
Yeah, look, you know what? I kind of framed it wrong because obviously Lowry's a stud, in my opinion. I think what he brings to a team is leadership. He's won a championship. He's an all-star. He plays really hard. He's an elite defender. He can shoot the ball. So as a player, he's good. But it just comes back to like you had that with Drew Holiday, and I don't know what happens behind closed doors. Maybe Drew requested a trade. Maybe he wasn't happy. I don't know. But like, it's more about David Griffin than it is Lowry in the sense of
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean? You had Drew, now you want Lowry.
yeah,
What's Lonzo doing? I heard he was in trade rumors. Now he's not. And it's just like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm just, for a guy like Zion in this era of the NBA where like trade requests are more common than like, you know, scoring a basket, it's just, I'm a bit worried the direction of the team. So, yes, I think Larry will help, but it's like, I don't know, man. Like, who are they going to hire as a coach? Is Zion happy?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah,
I
I don't
do.
know.
I totally agree. And I mean, to be honest, like they probably had to move off Drew. Like in the sense, like
Mm,
he didn't demand a trade, but he wasn't. Uh, you could tell that he wasn't going to be around long term. And I can't even remember how much was left on that contract of his. I should probably
mm,
pull up the details on that. But
I'll have a look.
you could probably get the feeling that Drew was going to be on the trading block anyway, purely just like because of a championship contender
Mm,
looking for that kind of talent.
mm.
What did they end up hauling in for Drew? Do you remember the details of that trade? Like, to be honest, I don't.
Oh,
Was it even
wow.
was
Okay.
was it
Yeah,
even like significant?
it was Bledsoe and three firsts, I want to say. And I remember at the time, I think DiVincenzo was supposed to also go there, which would have been real nice for New Orleans. And then he got mentioned in some Sacramento movement, and then he didn't get traded at all, which was weird. I think he got caught up in that Bogdanovich mess where the
Yeah.
trade was
Okay. It could
leaked
have been a
early or
three team.
something,
Yeah.
but it was roughly Bledsoe three firsts. Forgive me if I got that wrong, and maybe something else. So
And they,
again, like,
and they've moved off Bledsoe within the year. Like they
yeah,
got rid of
yeah,
him. So
it's
it,
just like fodder for fodder. And when you have Zion, I don't know, man, like how soon is too soon to try and win now? But like, again, I just question, like, you've got a superstar. Like, do you like, where do you think Pelicans going to go this year in terms of standings? Do you think they're a playoff chance? Like, I know having Zion and Ingram sort of makes you a playoff chance just on paper, but I would say the last 2 years they haven't even come close to expectations.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, I'm happy to put some of that to rest with, obviously Zion being in his, first couple of years. That first year was obviously um, battling injury, and he had an outstanding, sophomore year. So I definitely think that with that kind of step up in their game,
Mm,
they could probably come up the standings a little bit. I
mm,
think it just depends that middle of the table that's fighting for those few positions in that
mm.
plane. I think it's really going to come down to how well some of those teams develop. And I
Yeah.
mean, like, not to kind of diverge off the topic too much, but you've got teams like Sacramento that I feel like had a really good trade day, are making some really
Mm,
good moves. Reports
mm.
suggest that they're going to get Tristan Thompson, and
Yeah,
and they,
right, yeah.
and they've got a strong backcourt that they're going to probably be able to even move Healed for some really good value if that trade with the Lakers, and we'll get a touch on that a little bit later, if that came through. I think
Mm,
Sacramento would be a really, really strong team. So New Orleans, I think, are still probably like vying for that middle of the pack positioning. It's just about
mm,
how well they can kind of establish themselves above some of those other teams that are also going for those spots, and just teams that come to mind are Sacramento, Memphis. They're always gritty around that kind of area, and they made a
mm,
really good deal coming off Valanciunas. I think they got
mm.
a really good deal there. They won that one by far, in my opinion. But
I
um,
I think, sorry to interrupt, I think that was a save, just speaking of Valanciunas, because even bringing in Steven Adams, like, kind of drives home the point of what I'm talking about with Griffin. Like, you bring in Steven Adams, who, next to Zion, you could argue, oh yeah, he's going to protect him in the paint. It's going to take minutes off Zion, but like, Zion's your Shaq point guard, which is so unique. You don't need a guy like Steven Adams clogging up the paint. It's similar to how Simmons and MB don't work, and I just wanted to say that to shout out JC because I know he's watching, and I just want to stab a little dagger in his heart. But no, no, back to the New Orleans Pelicans. It's just the dysfunction that gets me. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, but Valanciunas was really nice for Memphis the last couple of years, so that could be good with Zion. He's not a 3 point specialist, but he has started shooting threes. He's a bit more versatile as a five. So No, please go on. But I just wanted to mention that is a bit of a save. But Griffin on the fringes has been pretty poor. Yeah,
Yeah, you got to give Griffin one every now and again, right?
yeah,
But I
hundred
mean, like
percent.
I do think that Memphis got the better end of that trade anyway. But
Mm,
Valanciunas is obviously a good piece for New Orleans. That
mm,
spaces that floor. But as you say, like I don't know who. I don't know what the right answer is in terms of building around Zion.
mm.
It's a tough like he's such a unique player, and they've got an interesting kind of core around him, and I
Mm,
feel like this is the season to really kind of work out what it is that works well, what doesn't work well. And since
yeah,
Zion's getting into that third year, that kind of point in his career where he's going to start to have a bit like obviously he's already got heaps of clout, but I think
mm,
like right now is where he's going to start to hopefully as a player start to take the reins on the organization a little bit around like
yeah,
this is like I'm a superstar. I'm like you guys need to build around me, like we need to develop a championship core here, and I think they've got
yeah,
the beginnings of it, but then ultimately as you say it's going to be on Griffin to really kind of work that out and build around
yeah.
Zion, because if he doesn't, like Zion can get snapped up quickly.
And you know what? Like one final Pelicans take and disclaimer: I'm a 24-year-old idiot from Australia that doesn't know anything about the NBA compared to a GM. But like, just to speak to the Griffin dysfunction, or that's just my opinion, but like, to speak to that, you've got a guy like Miles Turner on the Indiana Pacers who I think would fit perfectly with the Pelicans, and to not even reach out to Indiana and say, I will give you, I don't know, Steven Adams a first and one of our young guys, and bring in a guy who's a defensive player of the year candidate, can stretch the floor, be perfect alongside Zion, Lonzo, and Ingram. Like these are the kind of things that need to happen to keep a superstar draft pick happy and push for the playoffs. But yeah, look, I don't think we can say anything else about the Pelicans, but yeah, I guess just to cap that, go back to Lowry for a second. Where do you think he ends up? Do you think he stays in Toronto, or do you have a destination in mind that you would like to see him, or think he'll end up? What are your takes with that one?
I think that's a really, really good segue into kind of what we were wanting to talk about when it comes to some of the trades that have been happening around the league. And if we're
Yeah.
just looking in the, I guess, in the microcosm of Lowry, I think it's quite, it's hard to look at it without the context of what's happening around the league,
Mm,
because
mm,
there's a couple of things that have happened that kind of spring immediately to mind, and we'll touch on them in a little bit more detail. But number one is that obviously they've already rejected offers on Lowry from Philadelphia, and
yeah.
that's for other reasons. But Simmons could be at Toronto right now, but we'll get into that in a bit more detail.
That's interesting. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but the other thing is that in terms of the draft, um, they didn't take Jalen Suggs, who would have
Mm,
been the clear pick at
mm,
4, and they've opted to not go with a point guard, and they
mm.
went with sorry, his name escapes me right now, Scotty
Scotty Barnes.
Barnes. That's it.
Yeah.
Scotty Barnes at the 4, which I thought was interesting when you have a player like Jalen Suggs available, and to not go with a
Mm,
point guard.
yeah.
So like the mix of them not going with a point guard in the draft, and this is obviously a very deep draft with a lot of really good talent,
Mm,
and then to having already rejected an offer for Lowry, and I mean we can get into the details of that offer a little bit later because it's pretty incredible. But
yeah.
like with a couple of those things in mind, I feel like potentially Lowry stays put at least for the start of the season, and
Yeah.
potentially something that they might work around at the trade deadline.
Mm.
I don't know. Larry's not in any rush probably to leave. Like he's, how old is he now? Like 34, 35. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, he's,
yeah,
he's quite old and on a lot of money. So, I mean, I'm sure he's content where he is. So it's probably just about Toronto getting what they want for him, right?
for sure. And you know what? Just quickly, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Toronto last year were just like, we're in Tampa Bay, we don't give a fuck. Now's a great year to just not care, like semi-tank, and come back next year with a top 5 pick, which they did. Fred VanVleet, Siakam, OG Anunoby, and just say, hey, Kyle, here's another 30 mil for 1 year at the trade deadline, depending on how we're going. You let us know where you want to go, and we'll try and make that happen. Or secondly, and people might call me crazy, but like is it out of the realm of possibility that the Raptors could contend for a championship? Maybe not win the whole thing, but like push Brooklyn, push Milwaukee in a playoff setting. Because they're pretty good, man. Like they had a bad season, but they've got length, they've got shooting, they've got championship identity. Siakam's a bit of a Beyblade, but that's all right. I think he's still a good player in some contexts.
The
But
Beyblade.
yeah,
You got to
yeah.
get a
Look,
graphic up for that one.
yeah, just let it rip. But yeah. Look, it's interesting. I mean, I don't know, man. Ujiri is a god, and he might have missed with Barnes, but we'll just have to wait and see. But uh, one quick thing with the Lowry thing, I think Miami is a possibility. They'd have to shed some salary, let go of guys like Iguodala and Dragic, but I don't see Pat Riley having any issue with that. And that would be pretty frisky if you got like Bam, Jimmy, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Kyle Lowry. Who else is on that roster? I think Ariza's still there. That'd be pretty cool. And yeah, anyway, I think Lowry will stay put or go to Miami. That's my opinion.
Miami's a really interesting destination, and I feel like
Mm.
that kind of if Larry was to go anywhere and he had a say in his trade destination, you'd definitely be expecting that it's going to be something um, like a Miami or Clippers.
Mm.
Or rather than Clippers, like Los Angeles, Miami, New York.
Mm.
I don't think he's going to be interested at all if he had a say in the trade to go to a small market team that isn't kind of vying for
Yeah.
a playoff chance or even a title chance. But in saying that, I am sure he wouldn't mind if it wasn't like an absolute championship contender, like let's say the Knicks, but to be in New York. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I definitely agree. Miami would definitely seem like an interesting
Bro,
place to land.
we're on the same wavelength because you brought it back to New York, and when you said it originally, that does make a lot of sense. Like they've got assets to move stuff to get him. I feel like him and Randall and Thibodeau are of the same sort of ilk.
Yep.
And I could see him leading that team. Like I could see New York getting excited to like be a 4 seed again. You know what I mean? And like they might chuck Larry like 2 years, 70 mil or something crazy, and he just goes there. So, but basically the point of what we're saying is he would fit on any team, and he's gonna have so many options when he decides or if he wants to go somewhere. So, but look, I'm going to do the most creaky segue of all time. Lowry, Miami, LeBron, Lakers, Westbrook. So that's probably the biggest news of the week.
How did we get the biggest news of the week is how he got from Lowry to Miami
To
to
LeBron.
Westbrook in
Yeah.
LA. I mean, it was pretty
Okay.
good.
Okay. Look, I'm going to let you take off because I'm in the minority here. I'm a LeBron fan for people that don't know. That's putting it lightly. I want Lakers to succeed. I see the glass half full. So, Luca, Westbrook to the Lakers. I'm just going to quickly get up the details of the package, even though I do remember it, but I want to make sure. The Wizards have agreed to trade Westbrook 2 second-round picks to the Lakers for Kyle Kuzma, KCP, Montrezl Harrell, and the 22nd pick, which they subsequently traded to Indiana. But initial take, just lay it on me. Tell me I'm crazy. Just go.
Look, we've had a few back and forths on this coming to kind of tonight's chat, and I definitely see your side of things, and I'll let you kind of get into that. But initial thoughts immediately is two things. One, the deal involves Kuzma, KCP, and Harrell,
Yes.
and they had and were in deep conversations with Sacramento to
Mm,
send Kuzma and Trez for
mm,
Healed. And
mm,
looking at a team that is desperate for wing shooters and a fairly capable point guard in Schroeder. Like
mm,
obviously, he had his deficiencies in the playoffs, but all things kind of cast aside, like his can serve as a like with Anthony Davis and LeBron being primary, the ball in their hands primarily, he can serve as a serviceable point guard. And so to
mm.
really stack up that kind of wing presence and have incredible shooting there would have been, I think, a really good play for Lakers, and having KCP and those picks in their back pocket um, is interesting to me, because now what they've done is effectively taken away nearly all of their depth, and they're already kind of cap tight. they've got like what half of the mid-level exception left or something like that, and they've
Yeah,
just tied
5.3 mil,
5 point,
5.3.
and they've just tied up like nearly all their cap into three players effectively. And
Mm,
what kind of room does that give them to play around with the rest of their roster?
mm.
Obviously, we're probably now expecting perhaps a sign and trade deal for Schroeder to get something back in return, because it seems unlikely that they can now work with that kind of 4 year 120 contract that was being kind of reported for Schroeder, or at least
Yeah, yeah,
what his asking price is. Maybe he might come down to stay with the
yeah.
Lakers based on Westbrook staying, but I also find that highly unlikely. I doubt Schroeder wants to now play second fiddle to Westbrook.
That's
Um,
0%,
yeah,
0%
zero
happening.
percent exactly. So he knows he can make some cash elsewhere, and it's just whether or not he's willing to give Lakers the kind of benefit of the sign and trade, or just um, walk. I can't remember if he's restricted or unrestricted free agent.
Uh, Lakers. Oh my God, that's a great question. I think he can walk.
Yeah,
So Lakers have no restrictions on Schroeder, but I could be wrong. I don't know if they have
yeah,
their bird. They have his bird rights, but yeah, go on.
yeah.
I'm just going to quickly look that up.
Yeah. But so like overall, like, and that's even without looking at like the actual like Westbrook as a player, right? That's me just purely kind of understanding what the kind of trade environment is at the moment, what was
Mm,
available to them, what the landscape looked
mm,
like. Obviously, I've got my reservations about Westbrook, and in general his performance over the last few years in the teams that he's been a part of, and in the playoffs. But I think
mm,
he's coming off an incredible year. I think he's potentially had, like, I think, to be honest, this last season with Washington was, to be honest, better than his MVP years. And call me
mm,
crazy, but I thought he was like incredible during the regular
mm.
season with the Wizards. I thought he had a superb season.
Yeah,
But in saying that, he's going to a team where LeBron is incredibly ball dominant. You've got Davis, who needs the ball and he can go to work with it. And now you've got a player and Davis can stretch the floor, but you can't. Now with Westbrook, who's obviously not a particularly great shooter, LeBron is serviceable. He can get it done sometimes, but Westbrook is more often than not he struggles, and so he's obviously going to be attacking, going to the ring, and being on the ball, clogging up the paint. So now, how much is their team able to kind of have like someone that truly anchors that kind of center spot? And I think we spoke about this, but Marc Gasol would be perfect if he was a little younger and more in his prime. So
yeah,
I'm just interested to see what the team dynamic looks like, and I'm struggling to kind of see like if there's a lot of value there. But
yeah.
conversely, like immediate reaction is that obviously Westbrook is an athlete, first and foremost, and he's a superstar. And so when you kind of always have to, you're biting at the chance to get that kind of player. And just to not deviate the conversation too much, but I think obviously we're coming out of COVID, and there's a lot of business to be made in the NBA and across sport and the world in general. So Westbrook, they know, is a player that's going to fill seats, and I
Yep.
think he's going to bring incredible business to the Lakers. So I think
Mm,
from a
mm,
business perspective and a business decision, A plus.
mm.
And then obviously the fact that you get a superstar in that, and you're going to have LeBron happy, AD happy. You've got that big trio, like kind of trying to compete with what Brooklyn has.
Mm.
I think that it's a very interesting scenario, and I'm super keen to see how it plays out. But I do
Mm.
have my reservations when we consider the context of the trade landscape.
Yeah, yeah. Look, you've covered a lot of points there, and I think you've just done it beautifully. So I'll just add to a couple of things. I like what you mentioned about Buddy Hield. The question now becomes, is Buddy Hield and KCP and picks fodder better than Westbrook? I think that's a legitimate question. Um, at the very least, it makes us want to watch the Lakers more now in the regular season, because if you get Buddy and just surround LeBron and AD with shooters and defense, which is the conventional way of doing things, I think most intelligent NBA fans who don't hate Lakers or LeBron will tell you that's probably the finals favorite in the West. Let's just get to the playoffs. Let's not get injured. Please, dear God. You know what I mean? But I'm being pulled from 50 different directions, because if you ask me what I think of a Westbrook trade after the 2020 finals when the Lakers won a championship and LeBron got his fourth and all that sort of thing before the injuries, I would have been like, bro, give me Westbrook. LeBron is the best player in the world. Davis is a beast, and let's just go. But with this last season, like, I don't want to use too much recency bias, but LeBron got hurt, Davis got hurt, Lakers got done in the first round because of injuries and form. Throwing Westbrook into that cauldron's just a bit like, fuck, this could be really good, but it could be really bad kind of thing. In terms of a fit, Lakers are really, really good. I'd probably say arguably at their best in transition. And when you have a guy like Westbrook, he's going to ignite that. And the thought of having LeBron and Westbrook running a lane and Davis grabbing a rebound is just delectable. But in the playoffs, we all know transition opportunities are limited. It's more of a half court game, and Westbrook becomes a brick shooting Ninja Turtle. So I'm a bit scared about that. He's very ball centric. LeBron needs the ball in his hands for the most part as well. But look, dude, I don't know. It's so much to digest. It's the most Lakers thing that they could have done. But I'm going to keep looking at it like Lakers have three All Stars. Buddy Hill would have been nice, but we're just gonna have to wait and see on that one. But yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those ones that makes your brain hurt, and I'm just not sure what's gonna happen. Quickly to go back, Schroeder is an unrestricted free agent, which means that he could royally fuck the Lakers if he wants to. Um, so hopefully he's willing to play ball and do some sort of sign and trade. If not, Schroeder could walk, which is a bit annoying, but you got Westbrook, and then you can sort of build around the mid level and do some other things. But the Lakers have some boom bust potential. I reckon they could be really good, or they could just find themselves in a similar position to last year, which kind of scares me. But yeah, they're my main takeaways from that deal.
Yeah, 100%. I've got a couple of things I want to just touch on that you mentioned. But just before I get into that, I want to say thank you to Chef Jaffa for the sub. I really appreciate that. I love the support.
Thanks, Chef.
The chef. Um, but in something that you said was really interesting. You spoke about the kind of transition game and how that's their kind of identity, and how
Mm,
Westbrook really comes in and kind of like just what he injects into that transition offense is incredible. The one thing that like on the converse side of that, which is quite interesting to me, and Westbrook is an absolute dog. Like he takes no possessions off, right? But when I compare what that championship Lakers team was to what this team is now in terms of defensive identity, like
yes.
it's like day and night. And like they went from, the most, you know lockdown defense in the league, and you were scared going against them, to now like really average, to be honest. Like even what they
Mm,
got to like kind of replace some of their departures, like in Wesley Matthews, who's a 3-and-D type guy. Like they're just they've lost a lot of that defensive identity. And Westbrook, even though he's a dog and takes no possessions off, I still think defensively he's sometimes not great.
mm,
And so
mm,
I'm just interested to see now, like if like when you look at what they're trying to do, like let's say they're trying to do what Brooklyn did, right, and develop this superstar trio of just high potency offense. I don't think what the Lakers have built comes even close to what
mm,
James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie are,
mm,
from an
mm.
offensive perspective. Um,
Yeah.
and that's not because neither of those three guys that we just spoke about from the Lakers are offensive players, but like Harden has taken significant bounds in, like he was like vocal about, I want to go just play good basketball. I don't want to shoulder the load. I don't want to
Mm,
just score 40 points a game. And you can see by his stats that he did just that. What did he average? Like an insane amount of assists, and he was the primary facilitator. And it moved Kyrie into a position where he was could play as a pure scorer. He didn't need to kind of take on a lot of those point guard responsibilities, which he seemed to not really love to do. And
mm,
then obviously
mm.
you have Durant, who's like the ultimate like floor raiser, and like he can just play off ball. He can do. We don't need to talk about KD, but um, I just don't know if they get the same kind of offensive value from LeBron, AD, and Westbrook. I don't know what your take is on that. Am I crazy
No,
in saying that?
no, 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 you're not. And you know what? It's funny you say what you say because I don't disagree with you defensively, but it's weird because by the numbers last year, they actually were the best defense in the league. But at the same time, I will contradict the numbers and say they're not bad at defense, but I get what you're saying. Like you lose a guy like Kuzma, you lose a guy like I'm just having a mind blank now. Who was the deal? Kuzma, KCP, and
And
Trez.
Trez,
So
yeah.
yeah. So Kuzma and KCP are basically heading your forward slash guard perimeter defense. LeBron and Davis last year were injured, and LeBron getting older does scare me. You know what I mean? So I'm with you on that one. I don't think the Lakers necessarily have to have an explosive offense to contend with Brooklyn. They just need to stay healthy, but they need to also find some shooters. And like that's the main thing that concerns me is like LeBron and Davis in the pick and roll is going to be amazing if they're healthy. I trust that. And then all I can think about is LeBron and Davis in the pick and roll, Westbrook, dot dot dot. Like
Yeah,
there's
like
nothing else at the moment. So it's like to be determined. And
what do they do there? Do you think they like I know they're not amazing, but like do they go on a limb and try go out for guys like, for example, Brooklyn just sent Shamit to Phoenix, like
oh,
is
please no.
like you know what I mean? Like the guy is obviously, to be honest, he was better than Joe Harris in the playoffs.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think Joe Harris is a better player, and Shamit has been streaky his entire career. But I
yeah,
don't know. Like, do you just try go out and find cheap shooters that like could fill the
yeah.
void? Because that
Look,
seems to be
this
like the only option they have.
this is my Lakers cheat sheet moving forward. Re-signed Horton Tucker because he's young and has shown promise. He had a few good moments, but not consistently. But I think that year four, is it year four now? He's going to have that year 3 leap where by the third or fourth year, you can usually tell if a player is going to be good or bad. And I think that this is the season to see that. So you want to sign him on that basis alone. Re-sign Caruso because he becomes a crucial, even more so part of the team in terms of his ability to hit a corner three, play elite defense, run transition. Um, Names that come to mind that you could sign who's not already on the Lakers radar or on the team. I don't like them, dude. Like you mentioned Shamit, that's a good sort of archetype of who they might need. People are saying JJ Redick, but I feel like JJ Redick's name is sexier than his game right now. He doesn't play much defense. He hasn't played a lot of basketball. So, oh, don't get these Westbrook highlights up. I'm getting excited. But you're disenfranchising me. But yeah, dude, I reckon sign the players they have. So Caruso and Horton Tucker. Gasol is still on the books, and as old as he looked last year, he's a good rebounder. He's a good rim defender. He's a willing passer, which will help the Lakers. And he can hit a few threes. Um, Guys, names that I like, which I'm not sure are gettable, are guys like TJ McConnell. I think he's worth $9 or $10 million on the market, but Lakers might not have that money. But maybe they could do something with Dennis Schroeder with a sign and trade and get, I don't know, McConnell. Who's their white guy that shoots threes?
Doug McDermott.
Doug McDermott. I reckon those two guys on the Lakers would be amazing. That might be wishful thinking, but someone like that, I'd let Drummond walk. I don't think he's a winning basketball player. Um, you've got Alfonso McKinney. I don't even know, like his name's probably not even worth mentioning because he's not really impactful. But you need another big that you can get for like vet minimum. There was a guy last year. I think it was Damian Jones. They should consider bringing him back as well.
Yep.
And I don't know, man. That sounds like a pretty decent team. If you got Caruso, LeBron, AD, Westbrook, Doug McDermott, TJ McConnell, who else is there? Marcus Sol. That's pretty good. But
I, I
that's what I do. Yeah,
I totally agree. Like, I think it just
yeah,
comes down to like how much they're like hamstrung by that cap.
yeah,
If they can make some of those things work, and
yeah.
and I 100% agree. I think those are some really good kind of moves. And the last thing is, you're letting obviously Drummond go, so just try find a young mobile big man.
Mm.
But yeah, I think to cap it off, I think that's kind of like definitely the game plan for the Lakers, and I think they can make and as we're seeing here, like Westbrook's a incredible player, and he's gonna do exactly that with LeBron, and he's gonna fucking jam it down the other
And
end. So
and dude, you know what? Like just watching this now, Westbrook's the kind of guy that can let LeBron sit on his bum, like in the regular season. Like if LeBron wants to take a break, you've got this fucking absolute tank of a man who can just play 45 minutes and just run the offense. You know what I mean? Like I'm concerned about LeBron and Westbrook on the court together, but when LeBron's off and Westbrook's just doing stuff like this, I'm excited because that'll help us win 50 plus games. But then the playoffs is when I'm just like, oh no, like is this gonna work? So it's a mixed bag. It really is.
Yeah, no, 100%. I am very interested to see this season and how it plays out and see what
100%.
Westbrook can do.
Yeah,
But yeah, like it as you say. I think to really cap it off, I think it's going to be kind of like sink or swim. I think
yeah,
depending on
yeah,
how everything works out, and it's really hard to tell. But at the same
yeah,
time, like we can definitely see that there are both some positives and some clear negatives to the trade.
definitely.
But yeah, I'm really excited to kind of just like see this team in action. Like just watching these
Yes,
highlights is getting me very excited to see someone with the
yes,
explosiveness of Westbrook playing
yes.
with LeBron. Like it's going to be pretty crazy.
All right, listen, I know JC's waited 35 minutes and 15 seconds to talk about the 2022 MVP, but now we get to my favorite pinata boy, which is Ben Simmons.
Let me
Disclaim,
let me.
disclaimer for everyone. I was so high on Simmons coming out of high school. I proclaimed that he was going to be better than Giannis when he got drafted, and I genuinely believed that. I say believed in past tense because 6'10", chiseled as fuck, 40-inch vertical, or it seems like he's ambidextrous. He's got Magic Johnson court vision. He's probably the best defender in the world right now. But his inability to work on his offensive game, and in particular his shooting and his confidence, has plummeted him to the point where he's passing up open dunks against Red Velvet at Atlanta Hawks, Kevin Herter, to give to Matisse Thybulle being 2-on-1. Then like, man, I really think he's done. And they're asking for the mother load. They're asking for Philadelphia, that is. They're asking for an Anthony Davis type trade package. And I don't even know where to start, bro. Like, someone needs to calm me down. But like, Luca, what are your takes on Ben Simmons, and what do you think happens coming up? Because they're asking for like 6 picks and 3 players, and that's just not going to happen.
Yeah, just
I'm sorry.
I've just put up the highlights here of Ben Simmons, and we're gonna
Oh
probably see
God.
some incredible defensive plays here, but we're just gonna
But
see
he's good.
we're
He's good, bro.
yeah
He's unbelievable. But it's just like,
we're gonna see a lot of dunks and a lot of passes, and
yeah.
but to your point around like what Philadelphia is asking for, like
Oh,
look, I don't know if it's a joke at this point. Like, I'm not sure if it's
oh
just
God, that's not
like,
good.
I'm not sure
That's not good.
I'm not sure
He
if,
thinks it's a joke. He thinks it's a joke.
like, what, like, look, let me put it into context. What I mean by it's a joke is obviously like, okay, can we pull up, what was that Toronto deal? What did they want?
I'll get that. I'll get that right now. It was like they wanted the Toronto Tower, Drake's house, and Masai Ujiri's bank account. Let me just get that up right now.
But like, while Jake's getting up that trade deal, like, that is no way. That's not even happening for. That's happening for three players in the league. Like that's happening for LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Steph Curry.
No, you
If
know what? Not even LeBron.
not
I
even
love
LeBron,
LeBron. It's not LeBron. It's not even for Steph. I reckon maybe KD and Giannis.
yeah,
Probably Steph. But like seriously,
yeah,
like
like there's
I've got it here. I've got it here. So Toronto sorry. Philadelphia proposed a trade which included Kyle Lowry, Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby, and the fourth overall pick. Like, bro, like are you trading Michael Jordan? Like that's never. I genuinely, like, no joke, I would not trade Fred VanVleet and OG Anunoby for Ben Simmons. Just those two players alone. But yeah, sorry, continue.
yeah. All I was gonna say was yeah, like the reason why I'm like, is it a joke? And not, and what I mean by that is not actually a joke, but obviously Maury is trying to explore, and he knows what Ben Simmons' value is right now. He knows it's kind of in the gutter, and so they're asking a high price to potentially see, I think, how some of these GMs and teams are going to counter. I just think
Mm.
Toronto is not one of those places where he's going to kind of get that love in terms of a counter. Um, because they've
But
just been so
sorry,
good.
sorry. Can I just interrupt you? Can I genuinely ask you what's the psychology behind Maury asking for that for Simmons? Because he either thinks everyone's dumb and he's smart, or he doesn't care about chemistry. Because the way he's going right now is like, what he's asking for Simmons is probably going to lead to a non-trade, right? But then what happens when he comes back to Philadelphia? That's going to be a fucking shit show. Pardon my French, but like, do you know what I mean? Like, imagine Simmons seeing all this stuff by the pool with Maya Jama wearing UGG boots, and he's like, I want to be traded, and he doesn't get traded, and Maury, like, do you know, like,
Yeah,
I can't. Like, I don't know. Like,
yeah. Look,
someone please tell me.
I think the thing is though that as as bad as it might be with like the organization, I think Ben has a really good relationship with the team and the team chemistry itself. Like I don't think he's ever gonna take it upon like and take it upon his teammates to kind of vent. I think he's like
Mm,
like as much as like some of the stuff he does annoys me. I think genuinely he's a pretty good bloke, and
yeah,
he's obviously got pretty good chemistry. Like a good bloke in a certain sense. We're not going to talk
yeah,
about the Olympics because that's just
yeah,
going to
yeah.
grind my
Please don't.
gears way too much.
Please
But
don't.
like I
As
think
Matisse hits a three.
yeah,
Yep, go on.
as part of like his relationships with his teammates, I think he's got a really good relationship with Jojo. As much as they kind of butt heads sometimes, and some of the other boys as well. So I think Philly know that he's got that, and so what that
Mm,
means is that they can kind of explore these deals, and he obviously knows he's on the trading block, but at the same time, like they can go to season with him and
yeah,
see kind of like how he plays out, and obviously nobody's expecting him to really turn a new leaf. Like something could change, but I doubt it'll change too drastically. But they've got all the way up until that deadline to kind of
mm,
make a move, and I don't think it would be too much of an adverse effect on the team. I still think Philly are one of the top teams in the East in the regular season, and they can
yeah,
make it work. And then obviously they're just going to fish for the right trade to make sure that it is going to be like a net positive to the team. Because
yeah.
the worst thing they can do is trade a player at the caliber of Ben, no matter what his value is right now, for next to nothing.
Mm,
And especially because he's an attractive asset to other teams from the perspective of he's got 4 years left on a deal, he's long term, and so if a team is willing to commit to him, then
mm.
they're gonna get some good quality out of him, but obviously some kind of hesitations as well. So
All right,
um,
I want to put you on the spot, and this is just to emphasize my point.
I
It's not
just
to make you look bad, but like, please answer me this. How, and this is not facetious, how does Ben Simmons' value increase from the start of the season compared to now? Because, look, no, I'm just going to ask you that. Tell me how it increases based on what we've seen the last few years, based on how we just saw him lose to a furry chuppa chup head, which is Trey Young and the Hawks. Like, I'm sorry. Just tell me how his value increases. I really want to know.
Yeah, I will answer that question. But before we get to that, I've got a little message here from JC in the chat. His theory is
Yes.
that Philly are purposely making ridiculous trade proposals so other teams refuse to try and get Simmons this offseason, so the fans can't blame him for not trading him.
So what I said before, Daryl Morey thinks we're dumb. Everyone's dumb and he's smart. Yeah, good. Thank you, JC. I agree. Thank you. Yes.
That's good theory. But to answer your question around like how Simmons is going to increase his value, I think just the recency bias of how bad that playoff performance was is obviously what is kind of you know putting that value down the gutter. Like obviously we're
Yes.
looking at these highlights, right? And you can see what he can do. Like he's an athletic specimen. He is first team
Bro,
all
he's
defense.
unbelievable. Like go
Second
on.
runner up to DPOY arguably could have been DPOY, and I think he is a future one.
Yeah.
So like the thing that I just see here is that he's going to come out, if he does come out the season with Philly, what you're going to see is you're going to see Ben Simmons return probably to regular season form, averaging
Yeah.
around 15, 8 and 8, and
Mm,
just showing everybody what he can do,
yeah.
like when he's playing how he normally does. And I think that's going to remind a lot of teams that he's not like as bad as he was in that playoff series. And like I do agree that like I still can't find a good example where he's been incredible in the playoffs. But I
No.
think just like removing the recency bias of that performance should just naturally increase his value to like not what it was, but like the
Yeah.
fact that he is still like potentially an all-star caliber player.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm going to contradict my question because I've just thought of something else, and you beautifully convinced me just then. Because you're right, there is a bit of recency bias. There's still a sliver of me, which is like probably 1%, but I'll give you that 1%. I want to see Ben Simmons play in a team that doesn't have Embiid in it, and as versatile as Embiid is in terms of stretching the floor, putting up mid-range jumpers and that sort of thing, he still takes up a lot of gravity in the paint. I just want to see Ben Simmons. He can play point guard, but I want a team to do what the Warriors did with that death lineup and just have literally four shooters, four absolute snipers, and Simmons just sort of look, we can talk about X's and O's, and him bringing the ball up probably might not be ideal, but just have him around four shooters. Give him the keys, let him do what he needs to do, and then
Mm.
after that, if he still does that passive aggressive, I'm just gonna fucking not shoot, and I'm gonna dominate the regular season. Then it's even JC will have to say, "Come on, guys, like what's happening here?" But dude, the talent is just unbelievable. This is why I get so worked up. Like this guy, he's as talented as LeBron. Like maybe not, that's probably egregious, but like that's how good he is. And it's just like, please, what are you doing? But yeah, I don't know. Do you have any Ben Simmons destinations with trades that you could think of, or anything comes to mind? Not to put you on the spot, but
Yeah, just, like before we get into just destinations, JC's just dropped an interesting question around: does a position change for Simmons make him a more viable option to stay in Philly?
mm,
It's a good question. Like I think in my mind, it it all depends on like his willingness to actually change his game and develop his game in a way that's going to be beneficial for Philadelphia. I think
mm,
if he can, appropriately play off the ball and not be like give us that passive aggressive shit and just actually like be a dominant force off the ball where he's, setting screens, making plays, and not just setting screens and like kind of like letting someone else run with the play, like, actively like, popping out, getting a, like, and playing that kind of like floating four, but also with like guard skills.
mm,
And, and in a way that maybe they like find ways to like limit the amount of time that Embiid and Ben play with each other. I think it's a really interesting coaching challenge.
mm,
I think him having a position change could be viable for Philly, but I think it's more than anything reliant on two things: his willingness to actually change position and work hard at it. So like that's obviously shooting and doing the right things off the ball. And then two, it's a really hard coaching challenge, and whether or not Doc is going to be up to that, if he's even staying around, I'm not sure what any rumors are there. I haven't been keeping tabs on that, but I think it's hard to imagine it working with those two kind of like requirements, I guess.
yeah, yeah. Look, I've been a strong advocate for Simmons at the four with Embiid, and basically his job is defend the other team's best player, get in passing lanes, run transition, throw it down like you do. Have, be an on-ball screener rather than coming off a screen, just to be a bit more lethal in that rolling game and do handoffs. But it all comes back down to this. You can have the best coach in the world, you can have the best schemes in the world, but if you're not going to take any jump shots whatsoever, you become predictable. I know it's the most common, obvious, basic thing to say, but if he just needs to develop a mid-range jump shot. Without that, I don't know, man. I know I sound so doom and gloom right now, but like I've just seen the same story, same script every single year. So, JC, to answer your question, sorry, yes, I think in theory a position change could help, but I saw Doc trying to play Simmons in different ways, and he just shrinks when the biggest stage is there, and he has to score. Like he took two field goals in the last four games against Atlanta, and I think Matisse took more shots than him, which is a lot for a guy who's in his was he is Matisse a rookie or second year? I think he was a rookie, right?
Nah, he was a sophomore last year.
Sophomore. Either way, Matisse is not a scoring threat in the playoffs for the 76ers. So yes and no is my answer, to be ambiguous, but I think Simmons needs to go, bro. I've been saying it for 2 years. Maybe it was a bit early on my part, but I like to sort of, call it before it comes, and time to go, baby.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's yeah, and then in terms of time to go and where I could potentially see him landing, I thought maybe their asking price was like a touch high to Golden State, but I thought Golden State would have been a really interesting kind of proposition,
Yeah.
especially him at the four. Like the amount that he'd bring to that team defensively, like oh my god, like I'm kind of like
What's the
just
deal, Luca? What's the deal in
it
that?
was
Not to
it
put you on the spot
yeah
for
it
Warriors.
was
What no, what do you think it should be?
Oh
Was my
right, yeah,
question.
yeah, okay. So the deal was Oubre, Wiggins, and I think a pick or two or something like that for Ben.
Four picks.
Four picks.
Yeah.
Shit. Okay.
Yeah.
If they could come down on the amount of picks, like let's say they wanted like one or two,
Mm,
or if they wanted the picks and to go with like take Wiggins, who's like a scoring wing who's gonna give you shooting and his ability to attack the rim as well. Like I'm not super high on Wiggins, but I think he's like be serviceable at Philadelphia. I think he'd bring some stuff to the team that Ben doesn't, which is namely outside perimeter shooting and shot creation.
Yeah.
So like if they were willing to go like Wiggins and like I don't know like Nico Mannion and like two picks,
Yeah.
like I reckon that'd be a pretty good deal. I'd take that. Warriors would
I
love that.
think I think we're on the same page. And tell you why. If Sportsbet had a market for the Simmons value in that trade, it would probably be Wiggins, Oubre, and 1.5 picks. You got
Yeah,
to take the over or under on 1.5 picks. So saying Wiggins, Mannion, and two picks is probably exactly where I would be as well in terms of value. So yeah, I
yeah.
agree with that.
Like Mannion's nothing to ring home about, but his it was Wiggins and Wiseman. Apparently,
Okay.
I thought it
Well,
was
yeah.
Wiggins and Oubre.
Well,
I mean,
the
I don't know
four the
why
four
you'd want.
picks.
I
It's
don't know
the
why.
four picks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know why you'd want Wiseman anyway. Like,
Yeah, it's retarded.
yeah,
That's so
like
stupid.
that's
But
like
anyway, yeah.
what. Anyway, yeah, like I don't know why you'd want that. So I mean, at least if you were taking Oubre, you'd bring back some of that defensive identity. Look,
Mm,
any combination of that in terms of value, I think would be really good, and I think Warriors would absolutely chop at the bits for that. Like,
yeah.
in terms of what he'd bring to that team defensively, would be incredible. Like him and Draymond on the same team defensively, and Clay playing, holy fuck! Like,
Bro, you know what? The more you talk about it, I think they're going to revisit this. I think they are. I think Warriors going to be like, hey, you know what? We'll give you three picks. We want to keep Wiseman. I don't know. I don't know what the mechanics of the deal is, but that just makes too much sense for Warriors at least anyway. But
yeah,
it has to be mutually beneficial. So I don't know.
yeah. I just think they went like Philly just started way too high on that, and I do feel like it makes so much sense for the Warriors that Warriors are need like are probably going to revise it. I could see something with the Warriors definitely happening. Like if I was to
Yeah.
pick anywhere, that's where I'd go. I mean, there's
Okay.
also potentially Portland with CJ.
Yep.
We've spoken about that a little bit, but I don't like Ben at Portland nearly as much as I do at Warriors. Like
Mm.
I'm picturing that lineup of you've got. Uh, you got Curry, you got Clay, you got Draymond, you got Ben and Wiseman. And
Mm.
then they also drafted incredibly well. They got Moses Moody, who's a great guard, and they also got Kuminga, who's an excellent athlete. So
Don't you mean Modi Muzi?
Moody, Moody.
God, that was bad.
Oh my god, and I swear to God, he was doing that on purpose. I was just like, please stop it.
Please shut up, Berg.
Just say his name correctly and move on.
Yeah.
Um,
Look,
yeah.
sorry to cut you off there. A couple of quick little other packages just to make JC happy and other Sixers fans. I'm taking into account both sides. So what teams would do to get Simmons and what is worth it for Philly to trade him. Um, a trade package with Chicago centered around Levine. Maybe Philadelphia say here's Simmons and Maxi or here's Simmons and Thibault. I'll chuck in a second, give us Zach Levine. I reckon Levine and Embiid would be pretty deadly as an offensive duo. I personally don't like Levine as much as other people, but he's a scoring machine. And I think he approaches his game the right way. He wants to be better. So I think he's a good player. Another one that I liked was Minnesota trying to convince Cat to stay and D'Lo, Simmons, and Cat playing together. Maybe you get someone like, actually, you know what? Let me retract
You could get
that.
Malik
D'Lo would be
Beasley.
part. He would be part of it. So it'd be like D'Lo and Beasley for Simmons, and then you've got Cat, uh, Anthony Edwards, Ben Simmons. Who's there? Okoji, the Nigerian guy. He's an elite defender, and you go from there. Maybe that works because Cat shoots threes and isn't as interior heavy as Embiid. Um, they're the main ones. You mentioned CJ, which has been my pet project for years, but Nurkic inside will probably clog that up a bit. So sorry to cut you off there, Luca, but just a couple more
No, no, that was
Simmons
perfect.
stuff.
And I think,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think JC just came back in chat and said exactly that. Like that'd be his other question: if they were to move Simmons, what kind of pieces do
Mm,
Philly need? And I think purely it would be something to make up that defensive identity.
yeah,
But you've already got Matisse, who's going to be a future multiple DPOY and first team all defense. Like he was second
yeah,
team all defense in his second year. So I have
yeah,
no doubt that you're going to retain some defensive identity there as well. Like I mean, JoJo's obviously insane presence in the paint as well. So I think probably just something like to retain that defensive identity. You've already got the pieces, but Ben is like a big loss. And and just shooters, like just more shooters to surround. Like I mean, to be honest, you might not even need shooters, but like more than shooters, sorry, I'd say shot creators, like someone like Zach Levine or Andrew Wiggins. Like I rate Levine well above Wiggins, but I think Wiggins would be good too. Like someone that is able to just get their bucket, and that's like, you know, shooting from three, you know, pull up on a dime, get to the bucket, like score any which way. Because I think Tobias was meant to be that, and he's not really that. So
Mm.
I'd be interested to see if Philly look to move Tobias too, but I mean that's probably a chat for another time.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what? Just look at the 2009 Orlando Magic. That's the kind of team that Philadelphia remind me of, and that's a big compliment to Embiid. He's the Dwight Howard of this team, and all you really need is everyone on the same page, people that can score baskets, as you say, and shoot threes. I think they've got that. So I think just adding a little bit more firepower and something that's good for the locker room is what you're going to need. So JC and the Philly fans, yeah, like I understand how hard it is to get off Simmons. He's your number one pick. He's got so much, potential. He's oozing with talent. But yeah, Levine, CJ, D'Lo, Malik Beasley, guys like that, just to fortify what you already have, because Simmons just is not working, man.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
To
yeah,
to kind of just continue on, because I think we've been talking for quite some time now, and
yeah.
but like I think we've got just a couple of topics that we want to work through, but maybe we might not get through everything. But one thing that I really wanted to touch on, because I feel like there's a
Here we
lot
go.
of interesting conversation happening around the league on this, and the first thing that comes to mind is No Context NBA and their posts.
Oh my
If any
God.
of you watching big basketball fans and NBA fans in particular, No Context NBA, little plug there. I'm gonna get that. Someone clip that, and so I can send it to No Context NBA to make sure that we get a little bit of clout with him. But
100%.
one of the one of the things that came out a lot in that chat was Giddy at 6, and
Oh,
and look, Jake, I'll let you. I'm gonna, because you know what I'm about to say, and I might
okay.
go unnecessarily hard. So just
Yeah.
just to kind of soften the blow a little bit, I'll let you go first on Giddy.
Okay.
What are your
Well,
immediate thoughts at 6?
okay. Look, let me bring out the sledgehammer first, because when he first came on the scene over a year ago, one of my good friends, Mark, shout out Mark Churches, he showed me this guy named Josh Gideon. Fox Sports was talking about basketball. And whenever that happens, it's a bad thing. And I just thought, who's this 6'8", 17-year-old gangly noodle head? Like, I don't care. Like, you're in the NBL, people are touting you like the next Magic Johnson, whatever. I was like, you suck. So I went unnecessarily hard on him because I didn't see much NBA talent, for a guy that, respectfully isn't an athlete like some of the African Americans are and some of the Europeans. I just thought, there's no way, this is just Fox Sports fodder, not going to happen, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward 12 months, I saw a highlight reel of Giddy in the NBL, and I must say he's quite an impressive talent. He's got court vision, he's got height, he's got length, things you can't teach. He's got an outside touch, and I sort of just revised my comments and said, you know what, boys, he's not as bad as I thought. He's going to make the NBA, probably a potential lottery, more than likely a late first round pick. But for whatever reason, whether he's Australian, whether, I don't know, the Boomers hype, the fact that he's in the NBL, so he's under more of a microscope as opposed to guys in college, he just got a lot more and a lot more steam. And I don't know, man. Like, I'm trying to be the other side of the coin and not agree with you as much, but 6 is very high. I feel sorry for OKC fans, because Sam Presti, and rightfully so, has been touted as an amazing general manager. He's got 50 first round picks. He's got the world at his feet in terms of a rebuild for OKC. But with guys like Jalen Suggs, Kaminga, even Scotty Barnes, and I'm not a draft expert, but there was a lot of guys out there that you could have taken ahead of him to start the rebuild, help Shea, and just go from there. I don't know, man. I just feel a bit hollow as if I was an OKC fan. But again, back to Giddy, he can be good, but it's just such a reach at 6. But I don't know if I soften the blow, but do what you need to do, Luca, because yeah, that's just my whole opinion on the thing.
Yeah, look, I feel like I want to go a little bit easier on him than like is that I want to, but like I'm just gonna rattle off some names here just so you guys can get an idea. So you got Jonathan Kuminga, Davion Mitchell, James Bouknight, Chris Duarte, Moses Moody. All of those guys went after Josh Giddey. And
Right.
so, like, when I just, even taking like Josh Giddey out of the equation, just looking at the talent that was on the board, and this is a deep draft, and we've spoken about this, how this draft is kind of compared to, an 80, an 84, a 96, a 2003. Like, obviously, we're going to see kind of like whether or not that stacks up, once they start playing. But, you had some deep talent all the way into the second round. And
Mm.
Giddy is such a project to me, like in terms of like he's lacking a lot of pretty desirable qualities in an NBA prospect. He's got a lot of really good qualities. His court vision is probably potentially the best in the draft. Like he's obviously got professional experience. He's got that under his belt. He knows what it's like to play with adults. And he's got the length. He's got the kind of frame in general that a good NBA prospect can have. But he's like severely lacking in just the weight room department. Like his body is not nearly developed enough in my mind. Like I think he's got a long way to go to develop, and his shot mechanics just need to improve. Like and defensively, like I don't even know if he's gonna. He's 6'8", right? Like think about
Yeah.
LeBron is 6'8". Like,
Yeah.
like if what kind of people is he going to be guarding with his frame? Like, is he going to be able to
Yeah.
kind of match physically? But like, not to like grill him too hard, but I just like he's got a lot of really good qualities, and I just thought that he was such a kind of project pick. And for OKC, a team that has the firsts, probably had the ability to trade up. Like for example, there wasn't any reason why they couldn't get to 2 or 3. Like in my mind,
Mm. Mm.
like none of those teams weren't the only team that was probably opposed to working at all. And I actually maybe even heard reports that Detroit were interested in moving one at one point. Like and that's Cade Cunningham, like
Yes.
and you've got the first round picks for days, for years, to kind of make that happen. Like think about what you
Yes.
could give Detroit for Cade Cunningham, and instead you
Oh,
keep your sixth and you take Josh Giddey. Like it's
yeah.
just the context of that. It just like baffles my brain. Like I don't understand it just from a business perspective and like what you're trying to do with your team. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it just doesn't make sense. Like I like Josh Giddey. Like in some respects, I don't think he's ready for the NBA in others. But that doesn't mean that he's not going to be able to succeed. It just means that I'm just a little kind of concerned as to how long it might take for him to be a professional in the league.
Yep. Yep.
And I just don't think OKC really needed to go through that with him. Like give it to like I don't know, a team that is willing to take the depth signing and get him to work with. Like he could have easily dropped to, let's say, Lakers at 22 or Philly at 28. Like if he was a late first rounder, which kind of I feel like he is, and imagine the
Yeah.
kind of development he could get at some of those teams without having to like shoulder the burden of heaps of minutes and perform
Mm.
straight off the bat. Like he could sit
Yeah.
behind and be a really good depth player for some of those teams. Like I have no idea why OKC took him really.
Look, in the end, contrary to our harsh opinions, well, not that harsh, but he's an Aussie. He's a good player, and we want him to do well. And who the hell are we? But
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Who
look,
am I?
look. I want him to do well. But I unfortunately, have to grade him, as honestly based on where he was drafted, and I hope he proves me wrong. And yeah, so yeah, bro, I think that's basically it for Giddy. But I wish him all the best, and hopefully he thrives with Shea in the backcourt.
And I mean, speaking of Giddy, and something that you kind of touched on, which is the Boomers and kind of like his impact on that team and how he played. And obviously, he didn't go to Tokyo, he didn't make that team, but he had a couple of good showings in those exhibition games, and he spent some time with that team.
Mm.
But yeah, speaking of like the Boomers and kind of like their performance, one thing that I really wanted to touch on just before we wrap up this first inaugural pod is kind of just the Olympics and
Mm.
the how the games have been played and kind of the play style and how enjoyable it's been to watch versus the NBA. Like, do you
Mm.
agree?
Oh, dude, 100%. I've kind of gone old head on the NBA, which I can't believe at 24 is already happening. But I don't know, like just watching the pride and patriotism of each country in the Olympics. And maybe that's just fantasy for the NBA because it's more about getting a bag and winning a championship. But look, FIBA rules, 4 10-minute quarters. There are two timeouts in a quarter, but they're short and there's no advertisement because it's the Olympics. I just love the way the ball moves, the effort on defense, the schemes, and how it's more surgical and scientific on how to beat your opponent. Um, yeah, look, the guys like Trey Young, James Harden, not to pick on those dudes, but in the NBA, you kind of get superstar calls and you can do non-basketball related movements to sort of game the system, get to the free throw line, and then we've got coaches challenges, we've got timeouts which seem to go for 3 minutes, so companies can get their marketing money's worth. And yeah, man, I guess what I'm just trying to say is I wish the NBA was a little bit more fast paced and physical like it used to be. I hate to say like it used to be, but you kind of get what I'm saying. So to summarize that, get back to the Olympics, I've really loved the way teams are just going balls to the wall, playing as a team and just playing some beautiful basketball. And I kind of question like, will Europe ever get to a stage where it contends with the NBA? Probably not because the talent is just so overwhelming, but I really have liked what I've been seeing. So yeah, what do you have to say about that?
I mean, like my first reaction and something that like immediately springs to me, and it touches on that point around like, is Europe going to get anywhere near like the NBA? And
Mm,
one thing that we've already seen is like, I mean, I put no credence in the exhibition games, but in the Olympics, USA just dropped a game to France, and
yes,
that's a strong French team. Like, don't get me wrong, that's filled with NBA talent, but like those players are like they're just playing with like such heart and intensity like for their country. Obviously that's some of that pride coming through, but they just play the game without those NBA restrictions, those like ticky-tack fouls and gaming the system. And Trey Young, just taking a jump shot or a floater and like flailing his arm and getting a call and stuff like that. And that love hasn't been presented to the NBA players, and Team USA has kind of not been able to kind of handle that particularly well, especially some of the talent that's come through in this Olympics team that has never played in the Olympics before. A lot of young guys that were kind of given the world when they entered the NBA and they don't know anything else. And
mm,
I think they're really struggling. Like, for example, I think Jason Tatum has been very underwhelming in the Olympics and especially in those exhibition games.
yeah,
And he's a bona fide superstar in the NBA. Like
yeah,
he is, if not in my top 10, just outside of my top 10 players of the league. So, and the
yeah,
fact that he's struggling against, in often cases, nobodies, it just rings to like how different the game is. And 100%, like I love the way the ball moves. I love that European style of play, and that's why a lot of players decide to opt to stay in Europe, or never even want to go to the NBA. Like, for example, to kind of bring it to the hometown and my Slavic brethren, Milos Teodosic. Like, he came to the NBA really late just to kind of get that experience and prove that he could be an NBA player. And obviously, he had a couple of underwhelming seasons, but the man was like 30 something when he came into the NBA. That he
yeah,
and he was highly touted when he was younger. Like, in terms of like NBA teams were like screaming for him to come over, but he didn't want to because he just loved that European play style and he knew he wasn't going to get that in the NBA. And now I kind of totally understand why some players want to do that, because it's just the European game is just so, the world game, to be honest, is just so different. And
mm,
so one thing that I like, a positive change that's already coming, is I know the NBA has announced that they're going to be reviewing some of those non-basketball move fouls, and we should hopefully see James Harden and Trey Young gaming the system less. Like, the amount of free throws that they shoot in a game because of that stuff just is like slows the game down. You watch a game at 11 and it finishes at 2 o'clock. Like that's
crazy.
unbelievable. Like, that's an
Yeah, it's
NFL game.
crazy.
Why? How am I
Yeah,
watching an NBA game? Like, that's
oh,
ridiculous.
it's crazy. And like, do they need the money? Like, I know COVID's happened and millionaires and billionaires want to line their pockets more, but it's at a detraction. And we live in a society now where there's social media and you got House of Highlights and Bleacher Report and whatever else. And I don't know, maybe it's just the way we digest sports, but people don't want to watch the game anymore. Like back in the day, you had a box TV, you had a cable running out the back of it, and every Friday and Saturday was NBA or whatever the case may be. There was a prime time game, and you all sat around and watched it. And like, I know I'm moving like backwards rather than forwards, but I feel like it's just so diluted with like highlights and TikTok generation, and We don't want to see an on ball. We want to see, I don't know, Aaron Gordon go fast break, against the grain 360, and that's cool. But like, yeah, I don't know, man. There's just so many things to think about with that. So I
I
want to see us enjoy the game for the game again.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like something that you is definitely not missed in Europe is the fact that obviously its viewership from like a worldwide perspective and its broadcasting is not nearly as prominent as the NBA, and highlights aren't as readily shared. I mean they're shared and they're on Instagram. I'm sure you can find them if you go to Eurobasket or whatever, but it's not digested as much, and so they really do play the game the right way, and
Mm.
for the love of the game and all those kind of like little nitty gritty details that me and you love, being like the X's and O's guys,
Yeah,
in terms
yeah,
of
yeah,
like
yeah.
basketball, right? And the NBA really doesn't have that. It places an emphasis on highlights, and it has like supported and refereed in a way that allows for that. And like one thing that I will say on that, and as you rightfully say, like I know it sounds like going backwards and going forwards, but one thing that I think the NBA has been kind of disrupted by a lot, and I do say that in a positive way as well. Like the NBA has done the right thing in embracing social media. Like obviously, like I think the NBA probably has the biggest following out of all like sporting organizations. Like don't quote me on that, but it's definitely more than the NFL. It's
Mm.
it's potentially more than the Premier League. I'm not sure how active the Premier League is on Instagram. I'm sure they very much are, but versus the NBA, I'm not sure. But I'll fact check myself on that later. But the NBA has like 50, 60 million followers on Instagram. Like they're
Mm.
kind of victims of their own success on social media in that sense. Like you can get everything you need to understand from what happened in a days worth of NBA by just scrolling through Instagram. You'll see all the
Yeah.
big dunks. You'll see all the big things that happened. You'll see who won, who lost, what the storylines are, and you call it a day. Like, and that's why viewership has kind of trended down year after year after year for the NBA, is because it's just so easy to digest their content via social media that you just don't need to watch the games, and you don't need to understand like what happened for the 12 by 4 quarters, like.
100%.
and
100%.
and the EuroLeague doesn't have that, so they get to play with like absolute love and just passion for the game and do those X's and O's and play the game the right way. Um, yeah, I'd love to see that come back to the NBA. I'm just not sure how with the business perspective that they place on it, because
Mm.
obviously they're obviously trying to compete with the NFL. I think um, that's the that's the big. I don't know, like how do they compete with the NFL, and it's all about business, right? Like they want to look good, and I think that's their own demise, I guess. We'll have to see. Only time will tell.
Yeah, 100%. And look, hopefully it just comes in cycles. I mean, health's been down. We've had COVID. Um, the last couple of finals opponents, barring Lakers, have been pretty watered down and weak. You got Milwaukee, with all due respect, Phoenix and Miami back in 2020. So who knows, dude? Some fresh young dudes coming up, and hopefully a good picture of health for our main savvy veteran guys. And maybe I'm just talking out of my ass and it gets back to normal. But yeah, who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But I
100.
think that's a wrap, bro. My brain is scrambled eggs.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think that's a wrap there, and I just wanted to send you a quick thank you as well for passing on your gifted sub, and you've forwarded it onto the community. So I
Got to
appreciate
contribute, my brother.
I appreciate the gifted sub, dude.
All
Um,
good, man.
but yeah, that's a wrap from me and Jake today. We're going to be doing this every week. We'll find out the right cadence for this, and plan accordingly, and get out quality content, and get these vods onto YouTube and whatever else. So we're going to be kicking this off, and we'll keep you guys updated on how often we're running it, when we're going to be going live, and getting that content out to you guys. But thanks for sticking around for the inaugural episode. Sorry about the kind of bare bones structure, but we're working on it, and we can't wait to see kind of what's in store for this pod. We're really looking forward to it. Any closing remarks from
100%.
you, Jake?
Nah, look, you just summarized it. I just want to thank everyone that watched today. I know it sounds corny, but like genuinely appreciate it. As you can see, we're coming from pretty humble beginnings, but hopefully you can hear by how we speak and what we say and the tone of how we say it. We're very passionate about basketball, and we want to build a community of Australians and anyone else from around the world that want to talk about basketball and like actually talk about the X's and O's and have a laugh at the same time, but just get into it. So yeah, thanks again, and hopefully we can make this a weekly fixture.
Thanks, Jake. All right, guys, that's it from us tonight. We'll catch you guys in the next episode. Peace out.
See you guys. Take care.